Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padujaka-charya Ashtoto to the Srimad Divine Grace. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padujaka-charya Ashtoto to the Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto the Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil. And loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 18th day of August, 2025, in San Diego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Canto 8, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations. Chapter 20, Bali Mahārāja surrenders the universe. Text number 14. Śrī Śukadeva Gosvāmī evam ashradhitam shishyam anadeshakaram guruhu shashapa daiva prahitah satya sandham manasvinam. Śrī Śukadeva evam ashradhitam shishyam anadeshakaram guruhu shashapa daiva prahitah satya sandham manasvinam. Śrī Śukadeva evam ashradhitam shishyam anadeshakaram guruhu shashapa daiva prahitah satya sandham manasvinam. Śrī Śukadeva evam ashradhitam shishyam anadeshakaram guruhu shashapa daiva prahitah satya sandham manasvinam. Śrī Śukadeva evam ashradhitam shishyam anadeshakaram guruhu shashapa daiva prahitah satya sandham manasvinam. Śrī Śukadeva evam ashradhitam shishyam anadeshakaram guruhu shashapa daiva prahitah satya sandham manasvinam. Śrī Śukadeva evam ashradhitam shishyam anadeshakaram guruhu shashapa daiva prahitah satya sandham manasvinam. Someone else? Okay. Śrī Śukadeva evam ashradhitam shishyam anadeshakaram guruhu shashapa daiva prahitah satya sandham manasvinam. Chad, right? Śrī Śukadeva evam ashradhitam shishyam anadeshakaram guruhu shashapa daiva prahitah satya sandham manasvinam. Daniel. Śrī Śukadeva evam ashradhitam shishyam anadeshakaram guruhu shashapa daiva prahitah satya sandham manasvinam. Vijay, you want to do it? Oh, you did it already. Okay. How about you, Kanai? Śrī Śukadeva evam ashradhitam shishyam anadeshakaram guruhu shashapa daiva prahitah satya sandham manasvinam. Anyone online?
Śrī Śukadeva
Śrī Śukadeva
evam ashradhitam shishyam
evam ashradhitam shishyam
anadeshakaram
guruhu
shashapa daiva prahitah
shashapa daiva prahitah
satya sandham manasvinam.
satya sandham manasvinam. Śrī Śukadeva Śrī Śukadeva Gosvāmī said, evam, thus, ashradhitam, who was not very respectful to the instruction of the spiritual master. Shishyam, unto such a disciple, Anadeshakaram, who was not prepared to carry out the order of his spiritual master. Guruhu, the spiritual master. Śukrācārya. Shashapa, cursed. Daiva prahitaha, being inspired by the Supreme Lord. Satyasandham, one who was fixed in his truthfulness. Manasvinam, who was of a highly elevated character. Translation. Śrī Śukadeva Gosvāmī continued. Thereafter, the spiritual master Śukrācārya, being inspired by the Supreme Lord, cursed his exalted disciple Bali Mahārāja, who was so magnanimous and fixed in truthfulness that instead of respecting his spiritual master's instructions, he wanted to disobey his order. Purport. The difference between the behavior of Bali Mahārāja and that of his spiritual master Śukrācārya was that Bali Mahārāja had already developed love of Godhead, whereas Śukrācārya, being merely a priest of routine rituals, had not. Thus, Śukrācārya was never inspired by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to develop in devotional service. As stated by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadhami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Now, if you're reading along somewhere, this translation has been revised. To those who are constantly devoted to worshiping me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Devotees who actually engage in devotional service with faith and love are inspired by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vaishnavas are never concerned with ritualistic smarta Brahmins. Srila Sanatana Goswami has therefore compiled the Hari Bhakti Vilas to guide the Vaishnavas who never follow these smarta vidhi instructions. Although the Supreme Lord is situated in the core of everyone's heart, unless one is a Vaishnava, unless one is engaged in devotional service, one does not get sound advice by which to return home back to Godhead. Such instructions are meant only for devotees. Therefore, in this verse, the word daiva prahitaha, being inspired by the Supreme Lord, is important. Śukrācārya should have encouraged Bali Mahārāja to give everything to Lord Vishnu. This would have been a sign of love for the Supreme Lord. But he did not do so. On the contrary, he wanted to punish his devoted disciple by cursing him. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai Śrī Gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Śrī Parampara. Well, forgive me now, but I'm cold. I'm going to put this back on. Just goes to show you, try to adjust the dualities in this world. Oops. Okay. But I'm going to put this back on. If I get too warm, I'm not going to do any adjustments. That is perfect. Okay. Okay. So, what's interesting here? So it says here that the spiritual master Śukrācārya was inspired by the Supreme Lord. Now, of course, Vishnu would have been pleased if Śukrācārya did not curse him. But you can see that if he did not curse him, then then the whole dynamic of the pastime would be changed. So Krishna inspires everyone to do what they want. It says that sarvasya chaham vriddhi sannivishto mattaksmatir jnanam apohanangcha. That I am situated, he says in the Bhagavad Gita in 15:15, I am situated in the heart as the super soul, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So he's inspiring the demons to do what they want to do. You know, he's perfectly willing to give them good instruction, but they don't want the good instruction. That's the whole point. We're rebellious against Krishna. So just as he will give us intelligence how we can do demonic things, if we really want to, if that's our determination, then he will also inspire us how to become devotees if we really want to. And that's what this Tesham Satati Yuktanam verse is. If you're aspiring and you're aspiring, you're thinking of Krishna in a positive way, and you're praying for inspiration, which is really what we're also praying for when we chant, then Krishna will guide us. He will, as he says here, I will give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. But he also gives the demons intelligence. Look at how intelligent Ravana was and Hiranyakashipu. They were all scholars, actually. And they were very sincere worshippers of Lord Shiva. So this is an important point to remember, that we're trying to establish an attitude, because it's minute independence. We can pray for guidance how to perform devotional service, or we can pray for intelligence, how we can rob a bank nicely. And if we really pray fervently, then we'll get that intelligence. So that's the essential quality of the living entity, especially in the human form. The lower animals and the insects, they don't really have much free will. They're getting instruction from the super soul, and they call it instinct. But how does a little bird, comes out of the egg, and he's stumbling around a little bit, but within like a few minutes, some of them, flying, and especially the insects, they come out and they're ready to go. Where does all that come from? They didn't practice and read up on it. It's all coming from the super soul. He's guiding every living entity, just appropriate to the form that they have taken. But in the human form, we have some free will. We can decide what knowledge we want to cultivate, what identity we want to cultivate, especially if we get the association of an actual devotee of the Lord. Lavamatra sarasangi sarvasiddhi hoy. Even just a moment's association can result in your getting complete perfection. Because, of course, that moment has to lead to more moments. It's not like you just get that moment and forget about it. Prabhupada contacted so many thousands and millions of people, either directly or through some medium. And many of them, everyone was benefited, don't get me wrong. But a select few were benefited to the extent of wanting to learn more and wanting to eventually become devotees. But because of the potency of his pure devotion and his will to preach and everything, he became a touchstone, that thousands of people who came directly or indirectly in touch with him through the books. We should always remember that this is such a wonderful treasure we have. We have a practically unlimited association with Srila Prabhupada through his books. And if you read once, you read twice, you again and again, you get deeper and deeper realizations. So this is why, from the beginning, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, I was just reading that in the Lilamrita, he was much more eager to print books than to build temples. Temples are there, but they can benefit a certain limited number of people. It can be thousands, but the books can benefit millions. Prabhupada, just think of the destiny of one book that Prabhupada wrote, like the Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It's been translated probably into 60 languages, 70 languages by now. And it's available. Devotees are going out, giving it out. It's probably available in so many libraries. And it continues to be a great means of people changing their whole lives, their whole attitude, their understanding of who they are, and everything that Krishna consciousness is. So it's a tremendous gift. And here we see that the Śukrācārya, he's not much of an acharya. You don't want to imitate his behavior. But at this stage, anyway, I always come back to what Krishna says of kavis, I am Śukrācārya. All right, but he also he understands, devotional service, and I think at a certain point he changes, and so but at this point he's very upset. He's angry because his disciple has disobeyed his order, to go back on your promise, of giving these 3 steps of land. So because Bali Mahārāja, exalted disciple Bali Mahārāja, doesn't want to do that, he quoted so many reasons why that's so horrible to do, and he actually promised, I think the promise is actually giving the gift. So he curses him. And what is the curse? The curse is to be bereft of all material things, right? Which is fine for Bali. And the devotee says, oh, bring it on. You know, Krishna says it's a blessing. Yasya hamana gundami hadashed taddanang shanai. This is a famous line. Prabhupada identified with this verse. He said, this, I was also a recipient of the blessing of this verse. So Krishna says to Yudhishthira, to those devotees who I really bless and I favor, I take away everything they have, everything material. You see? And then the next half of the verse, because most people, you know, they're married, it says then their family doesn't want to have anything to do with them because they're broke, you know, and so they could come out of the house. What am I going to do? I got to take shelter of the Lord. You know, that's my only... So we can see little realities of, you know, reflections of this kind of mood, you know, in our lives. If you think of that, all my material shelters were taken away, and I felt, you know, that it's time for me to now take shelter of the temple. That's what I really want to do anyway. I'm trying to chant Hare Krishna in the hospital, and if I do it too loudly, they'll get on my case. So I have to do it in my mind. You know, and so finally I said, I'm going to go to a place where the more you chant, the more they like you, you know. even different yoga studios, it's not like that, you know. Hare Krishna may be there as one of the mantras we use for our meditation. That's what it was, you know. But I realized I was fortunate to get some blessings of that mantra. But it just pulled me right in. So Bali is showing his real nature. His actual nature as a great devotee, a descendant of Bali Mahārāja. And he with this one act of giving away, you know, the whole universe. I mean, he conquered everything. The demons were in charge now, and the demigods were hiding here and there. That's why Aditi was so upset. So he gives 3 steps of land, and his spiritual master nicely informs him that he's going to take everything, even those 3 steps of land. You know, so go back on your promise. So Bali does exactly the opposite. He says, bring it on, you know. Then I can fully surrender and I actually show my real nature, you know. So it's a very fascinating pastime. So magnanimous. Now this is a little English thing going on here. Prabhupada loved this word magnanimous, you know, and he would use the word munificent, which he often uses it instead of munificent. He would say magnanimous. But you know, being, you know, I'm looking for, that's my job, to look at these words. And I think magnanimous, you look it up, and it means mostly someone who's very forgiving, very liberal in that way. Not so much of giving things like that, but forgiving. One is forgiving, the other is giving, you see. So Lord Chaitanya is the most munificent avatar, and Prabhupada uses that phrase sometimes, but he also likes this magnanimous word, so he uses it. So here, Bali Mahārāja is giving everything, so he's so munificent, really. And generally, the devotees, they're also magnanimous. They forgive slights, and they don't hold a grudge. So that's not, you know, I don't want to be too critical about this, but just to let you know that I think in this context, I don't see the word in the verse that corresponds to magnanimous. But obviously, he's giving everything, so he's magnanimous and munificent. And I'm sure he's not holding a grudge against his spiritual master, so in that way he's magnanimous too. So here, Prabhupada, you know, he brings out the important distinction here. Śukrācārya has the position of a guru, but he's not really a proper guru because he's not so devotional, you know. I mean, you have gurus who will teach you tantric mantras, right? If you go to India, you could probably search them out. I need a mantra to curse my neighbor because he's always, you know, okay, you know, 3,000 rupees or something, and I'll give you a mantra. So there are such gurus, right? Teachers. Guru is basically a teacher. But they're hardly what we would call an acharya, someone whose behavior you want to imitate, you know. So there's all kinds of teachers who can teach you this and that. And we know that Prabhupada, you know, talked about the slaughterhouses of the university system in America. That the students are not, he went to MIT, which is very, very prestigious technical university, you know, you call it Massachusetts Institution of Technology or something, MIT. So he went there and he said afterward, he's speaking about his encounter there, that I asked anyone who what class do we take here to find out the difference between the body and the soul? Nobody raised their hand, you know. They're finding out all kinds of things. I think the computer science is pioneered there and like that. So, and then there's the other problem in the universities, and that is the co-ed education. It's not, you know, that's not education. You're gonna, because one of the principles of Gurukul is you got the brahmacharis, because it's just a great distraction. Co-ed dorms, my God, even in my day, I mean, this was 1968, I went to college for a few months. I had a dorm room all to myself because my brother was a graduate. He just graduated, he had a degree, not a PhD, but something. So he had some influence, and he was able to, I got a full scholarship and my own dorm room. When does a freshman have his own dorm room, you know? I don't know. So anyway, that was something. But there were no classes, you know, I looked at the different classes before I went. I took about 3 months of this thing. And I was looking for philosophy. Believe it or not, I had the opportunity to study Sanskrit there. And it's one of the best Sanskrit schools. It's known to be, and they have a big library and everything. But my brother was, he was into philosophy. He had a degree in some philosophy, and that was all Greek philosophy, Plato, Socrates, all that business, you know. So naturally, he influenced me to take Greek. So I studied ancient Greek for a few months, you know. And then I gave it up. But Sanskrit, you know, Sanskrit itself, you know, is a wonderful language. But all of these, the knowledge that's there in the Sanskrit and the way and how concise it is. Sanskrit is such a concise language. There's a wonderful verse, I think, which is in Sanskrit, or maybe in Bengali, in the Adi Leela of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's just a part of a verse, I think. And Jai Vaidamara, he did a wonderful editing on it. Essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. Essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. Now, there may be so many eloquent speakers who can, really transfix you with their speech, but they're not speaking about essential truth. So it's kind of a fake kind of eloquence. It's a fool's gold. Looks like gold, but it's really not gold. But essential truth spoken. Now, there's so many verses in the Bhagavatam. You know, do you need any more proof how eloquent Krishna is? Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mama vaishasi satyam te pratijane priyosimi. You know, 32 syllables, he's given the means of going back to God and achieving the perfection of life. If you believe it, if you worship it, you take it in your heart, you try to follow it, you're in perfection of life, just in that one verse. And there's so many, you know, the Bhagavatam is filled with that, and it's just, anyway, it's a beautiful, beautiful language. And here Prabhupada quotes this verse, famous verse, Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. So the Dhammi buddhi yogantam, getting the intelligence. Intelligence is the key. That which differentiates us from the animals is the superior intelligence. They'll never ask, you know, the question, what is the aim of my life, you know? They know what it is. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So often defending is fight or flight. Mostly it's flight. Like I take my walks, you know, I learned so much on these walks. So there's, I was happy to see that the seagulls manifested again. There was a time there where I didn't see them for months. So where I walk, at the corner of Garnett and Cass, you know, there's a restaurant there or something. And a lot of times there's all kinds of spillings onto the sidewalk, you know, I have to kind of get. So I was looking, and there was a bunch of seagulls who were like getting ready to feed, you know, but they saw me walking, so they turned around. They didn't fly away. They just walked into the street, you know, and maybe the car would come and get it. But anyway, they walked. And then sure enough, after I passed across the street, I looked back and they were walking back, you know, and this is their strategy. So especially birds, you know, they have that wonderful ability to take off if there's some danger, unless it's another bird. But anyway, that every animal and every insect, they have a means of defending or fleeing, somehow protection, and eating and reproducing, right? Eating, sleeping, and they have to sleep at a certain time, right? So if now, this is another nice reminder, in the Hitopadesh, who can tell me what the name of that book means? Ramapati, you know. Hita Upadesh. Benefit. Yeah. Yeah. Hita is to benefit others, and Upadesh is, of course, instruction. So this is the one verse I know from there. Prabhupada would quote it oftentimes. And it's in this theme here. Ahara nidra bhayamaitanangsha samanyamaitan pashupi naranam dharmo hitesham adhiko vishesho dharme nihina pashupi samana. So we have in common with the animals eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. That's obvious, right? But what distinguishes the human being? Dharma. Without dharma, the human life is nothing but polished animal life. Dvipada pashu. Can you figure out what that means, Daniel? Dvipada pashu. Okay. I know Naveen probably hasn't learned that yet in his Sanskrit studies. Balaram. Dvipada pashu. Two-legged animals. All right, we have 2 legs and 2 hands, but we're nothing but animals. If our whole, meditation on our daily life is, how can I get better eating? How can I improve my sleeping? And especially how can I improve my mating? And I'll sleep sometimes too. Then that's just animal and polished animal.
Major insult, right?
What?
It's a major insult.
Insult?
Yeah.
It's not an insult if it's the truth, though. So I think many of us here, I wouldn't say all of us, but I certainly was leading such a life. It may have been, I had some philosophy here and there, but my basic life was, animalistic. So that's the society we live in. That's the age we live in. So how can the 2-legged animals be turned into actual human beings as devotees? And that is through attracting the intelligence. The intelligence doesn't have to be used in service of these lower things, you see. And that means contact. It means association with a devotee, a pure devotee, Now, there can be a medium, there often is a medium through which that contact takes place. As today through, the internet is also, that movie that was made of the Narasingha. What is it? Narasingha Mahavatar. Mahavatar. Did you see it? I only saw the what do they call it? The trailer on YouTube. But I think I'll try to catch that one. So there's all kinds of ways. And we should always remember that this is Krishna reaching out to us. That Krishna really wants us to come back. That it's so wonderful, the peace formula. Who knows the peace formula verse? Besides Ramapati. You know about Ram. Bhoktaram. How to get real peace, This peace. When I was growing up, there was peace in Vietnam, peace, Even if the war stopped, there's still no peace. Everyone's got so many worries and everything. But real peace comes when you follow this verse strictly. So the first thing is recognize, Bhoktaram yajñatapasam. Krishna says, I am the real enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices and austerities. Why? Sarvaloka Maheswaram. Because I am the ruler of all the worlds, all the universes. Sarvaloka Maheswaram, all planets, all things. So then he said, boy, he's really powerful. I hope he likes me. So then he says in the third line, Sudidam Sarvabhutanam. I am the well-wishing friend of every living entity. See? So this is, and then the last line said, Yatva mam shantam nityasi. One who knows me as such will attain real peace. Because if you know it, you see, if you really know something, then you have to act on it according to that knowledge. So knowing Krishna is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, okay, let's perform a sacrifice for him. What sacrifice? How about Harinam Sankirtan? Now you can see that that's such a joyful experience in and of itself for us, but that's because Krishna's enjoying it, and he's in our heart.
That's why it's so much pleasing to chant the holy name and glorify Krishna. You see? So right away you're joyful. That's like right next to peaceful, right? Suridam sarvabhutanam. Now I thought of this because some years ago, I always forget his name, there was somebody in the national intelligence, the government national intelligence thing, who was he revealed that the government now has the ability, and they're doing it, to spy on every email you write and every phone call you make. You see, in other words, full surveillance. And it's like the super soul, right? But they're not your friends. So this is actually against the Constitution. Not supposed to do that without cause, but they're still doing it. So this caused a lot of anxiety because people don't really trust the government so much, 100%. I don't want the government to know everything about it. And a lot of people want to hide stuff. So, but knowing that this person who knows every thought that you make, that you ever made, Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjana, bhavishani chabudan. I know everything happened in the past, everything that will happen in the future, and everything that's happening right now. To me, that was the most mind-boggling attribute of Krishna, to think of how he knows everything that everyone is thinking at this moment in the world and in all the universes. This is what omniscience really means, right? But no, all right, believing that, we certainly believe it, it's in the Bhagavad Gita. But then he says, oh, that's okay, because he's my best friend. I'll tell all my secrets to my best friend, right? Who really just wants my... So that's why you attain peace. Knowing that you're ever well-wisher. This is what a surit means, Prabhupada would always sign his letters, your ever well-wisher. That he's the most powerful, and that he knows everything about me, and that he's always trying to give me good guidance, and so let me take that guidance, because he's guiding me. I know that it kind of is going to be a little painful to give this up and to do this, but still, I know that he's got my best interest at heart, and if I do it, then I'll be benefited. And sure enough, we find in the Krishna conscious movement, you give up all these bad habits, that you used to take some kind of pleasure in, and you take on things that are a little austere, getting up at 3:30 in the morning, or even 4 in the morning, and all these things. So the do's and don'ts, yes, there's some austerity. Without that, there's no advancement. But after a certain time, it's not really that bad. You find that it's second nature. And it's such a relief to be out of the thrall, which means the control of these other things that we've been involved in, before we joined, and for thousands of births. We want to be in Krishna's thrall. Thrall means the control, because he loves us. That's the whole thing. He loves us, and therefore he's trying to give us love of himself, because that's the most valuable thing. And if with that understanding, you're ready to undergo some discipline and change. I mean, this is what life is made out. Oh yeah, I want to be in the army, for some reason. Our old friend, what was his name? That tall black fellow, really tall? Lalit. Huh? Lalit. No, not Lalit. Jamal. Yeah. He decided to join the army, or the military of some kind. And he wrote to me, he said, can you write me a letter, a recommendation, because did he ask you to write one? Anyway, I remembered him. He was there, nice devotee, but I just remember him always being on time to the programs and doing nice things, playing the drum nicely. I didn't know what I was going to write him that the government was going to like, So I wrote back to him. I said, listen, you write it and I'll sign it, okay? Because you know what you want to say. Never heard from him again. So he didn't think I was. But what is it about, one is the security. If you really get in the army and you can retire, just like our Jaigor and you get the veterans VA, you get health care for the rest of your life. And I think you get a pension, whatever, so because the government has all this money. But what do you have to do? What are you complicit in going on? Now they're sending the army into the cities and arresting the homeless people. Anyway. So whatever plans we might have to try to have some security and enjoyment on the material side, it's just a trick of Maya. It never works out ultimately. And what you're left with was all those unfulfilled desires, which are sure to bring you back again to a material body to try to do them, and in other words, just a lot of suffering, even if it doesn't seem to be suffering. And that's why in my Gita class, I chant this verse at least once every week. It says, Yehi sangsparjaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate yadyantavanta konteya nadeshu ramate buddha. This, if you really understand this verse, it's life-changing. So what Krishna says there is that the intelligent person does not take part in the pleasures that are due to the senses contacting their objects. In other words, sense gratification. Why? He says, O son of Kunti, because such pleasures are the sources of all misery, and they're temporary, unlike the spiritual pleasure, which can continue forever. Therefore, the wise do not take part in them. The wise do not take their pleasure there. So then the next question is, well, where do they take their pleasure? Because we're pleasure-seeking, just like Krishna. So that's in the previous verse. It says, Bhayasparshesu asaktatma vindityatmanayat sukham sabbrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Now Sanskrit fulfills that dictum, that essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. So this is about as concise as you can get. Sukham akshayam ashnute. They enjoy unbreakable happiness, which is never there for sense gratification. We have experience, So what is that happiness? Bhayasparshesu asakmat. So not attracted to the sense gratification, the external contact of the senses with the sense atma. Bhayasparshesu asaktatma. Vindityatmaniyat sukham. They're enjoying the pleasure within, the spiritual happiness. How? Sab Brahma yoga yuktatma. By being linked up with Brahman. Here it means Supreme Brahman, Supreme Person, Krishna. By always being linked up with Krishna, then they enjoy unbreakable eternal happiness, which is inconceivable on the material plane. So that's the promise. That's the verse before the one that says this is, those who are intelligent give up sense gratification. So that's kind of an essential element of what we're trying to do. And that's why Krishna is so kind that even from day one, you walk into the temple, let me check out those Hare Krishnas. I got this little book, it's pretty fascinating. The first time in the temple, And sometimes I used to notice, in the kirtan, people would be standing in the back with the like this. This mudra. I don't know, whatever they got. I'm not gonna let it all in right now, just show me what you got. But then if they come in and they're like this, this is another mudra. Yes, show me. So, but if someone comes in and they're somewhat receptive, then they'll be dancing to the music. They'll get caught up in the joy, like we see sometimes on Sundays. So, where is that coming from? I mean, there's music going on, and there's these statues in the front, and there's this sound, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Yes, because Krishna has infused things with his presence. He's actually there. He's there in the mantra. He's there certainly in the deity. He's there in the prasadam. He's there in the temple. And he's here in the devotees. The devotees are also media through which Krishna speaks and which he shows also how one can live a different kind of life. So that's Prabhupada knew all this, and so he made the great effort, heroic effort to come and give as much of Krishna as people would take, and to spread Lord Chaitanya's movement all over the world. And Krishna empowered him to actually do it. And we're just happy to be part of it. And the more that we can adopt that mood of being as serious about our own Krishna consciousness as possible, as Prabhupada wanted us to be, and serious about giving it to others and attracting others. Even just giving them a reservoir of pleasure, or a sandesh, or something. Somehow the contact is there and the attraction begins, and will one day mature into real bhakti. All right, I've gone a little over time. Any discussions on these points? This is a critical part of this pastime. Bali has rejected his spiritual master. Śukrācārya is cursing him to lose everything material, and he does, but he gains everything spiritual. So that's a good deal. All right, any questions? Comments? Bhakta Chad.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for
Haribol.
the very nice lecture. So you're basically talking about the opulence of wealth, right?
Well, that's what the verse is talking
Yeah.
about.
Well, yeah. The
Yeah.
lecture today. Can you talk a little bit about the other opulences and how they can be detrimental to one's spiritual life?
Oh, you mean the 6 opulences? If we try to get as many as you
Yeah.
want? Oh, sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah, thank you.
First of all, this is, part of Prabhupada's influence on the language. I think that this is probably enter into the language now, into the dictionaries. If you look up opulence, you won't find, a description of different opulences like wealth, beauty, knowledge, and things. Opulence just simply means you possess a lot of wealth. That's what it is. But this is a part of ISKCON, and we use it. Okay, the different opulences. So, yeah, I mean, he's giving up the wealth. Education, right? This is another one, being very learned, you see. Aishwarasya samaviryasya jnana writing. So, knowledge, there's so much material knowledge. And it can be, this is where the dushkriti comes in the Bhagavad Gita. When is this? Dushkriti means you're successful. You studied hard and you got this knowledge, it's something to build. But you can have the knowledge of how to build the atom bomb. That's dushkriti. It depends on. So knowledge itself, if it's not spiritual knowledge, can take you to hell. I mean, Ravana was a great scholar. Hiranyakashipu was a great scholar in material subjects. He thought he could build a stairway to heaven. I don't know if he actually tried to do it practically, but that's what they were. We can go to heaven. We can go to the other planets probably through the Sputnik, the different Sputnik. No, you can't. Even if they were able to land on the moon, they weren't really there. They weren't really able to see what was there. You see, and I don't believe they really landed on the moon, following Prabhupada. So all of that kind of knowledge is really detrimental. And Bhaktivinoda has written a song about it. It just makes you more stupid. It just makes you more ignorant, really, of this kind of real knowledge. You think, oh, I know all of that, And I was just reading. There's a book written by this boy named Purna Pragya. His name is well given. He's very intelligent. And I used to be, where did I know him from? I think, was it Miami? I forget. But I used to be in the same temple as him. So he wrote a book on how life didn't come from matter, it's coming from life, And he wants it to be published by the BBT. So I started reading it. And it was fascinating. There was all of this, because there's scientists also who, when they really get in, they realize that what's going on in the cell, in the individual cell. And I remember this, because we have this Origins magazine. I think it's mentioned in there. That was revised because it was printed back in the 80s, I think, early 80s. So Duda Karma went in and revised it. So Sariputta famously said, and he's probably quoting from some book he read, that each individual cell, like a paramecium, I don't know if they in high school and college, amoebas and paramecium, one-celled, simple, and it was simple one-celled organisms. Turns out they're not so simple. that each amoeba, like amoeba is one cell, is more complicated than New York City. All of the things that are going on in there to make it work, It's not a simple one cell. It's not like, because their idea is that, oh yeah, there's this cosmic soup, of chemicals and everything, and the lightning, and the light was coming down, and a one-cell organism came out, right? And then from there they reproduced, and then after a while, but it's not like that. There's instruction, the DNA, and how it's working. It shows intelligent design. In other words, an intelligence had to design it. It couldn't happen by accident. It doesn't work that way. So there was this scientist who was like that. He obviously believes that there's a creator from his scientific investigation. So it's very fascinating. So all the knowledge, Darwinism and all that, I mean, the brain power is there. and there's certainly knowledge. But it's a knowledge that takes you away from Krishna, so it's worse than no knowledge at all. Better to have a simple shoemaker, who hears the Hare Krishna chant going on, gets a reservoir of pleasure, and says, "Oh, that sounds interesting, let me visit the temple." Than someone who thinks, "Oh, I would never go see that." They think that life comes from life. They may not use those words, but they say, "Yeah, they believe in God, right? Come on. We know there's no God." Because, this phrase, "God is dead," Prabhupada would quote that, it's critically, obviously. Became popular shortly after the war, the big World War II, the existential writing. But what they really meant by that is not that God was once alive and that he died, but that the idea of God, which was false, was always false, as now becoming less and less popular, and more people realizing that there never was a God, never is a God. There can't be a God. And that's the death of God, you see. Because Nietzsche was, by the way, he has a nickname, Nasty Nazi Nietzsche, because the Nazis used a lot of his philosophy, to try to justify what they were doing. So anyway, what he was saying, and he was proud that he helped kill God. It wasn't that God is dead, meaning that he helped atheism to become popular in Europe. More. And you'll find even, America, there were a lot of churches, it happens, but you place, France and other places, the churches became very unpopular much quicker than they did in America. Now in America also churches are, probably a lot of the temples were churches, the temples that we have. So the point is that jnana, opulence, beauty, which is of course skin deep beauty, that can be misused so much. There's always another side to it, what to speak of wealth, as you pointed out. So all of those 6 opulences, which human beings tried to get, some of them as much as possible, eventually they're taken from you because Mrityu Sarvabhatas Chaham. Krishna says, I take everything at death. But what you're left with is how you use them. Your karma. If you use them for evil, for hurting people, for everything, then you're going down. Probably you lose the human form of life. So devotees also may have some of that, but if they spend their money, on temples and supporting, and so then that becomes a source of advancement in devotional service. So there's always the question of the intentionality of the motive that you're doing something, and that's exactly what Krishna and Krishna consciousness addresses. To change your way, your conception of who you are, what your benefit is, what your real goal in life is, and then you're given a way to actually fulfill it. So it's a perfect system like that. Hare Krishna. Anyone online with a question or comment? No, it's kind of late. Okay, let's adjourn. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare Bol.